Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Xiong. As the residents of Taiwan's east coast city Hualien might tell you these days, the roar of fighter jets that take off from the local airbase can be heard almost all day long. In the past, they did a couple of sorties in the morning, but starting last year, the fighter jets are active in the afternoon too and even take off at night. The jets were being scrambled to respond to growing harassment from China. In late March, the Ministry of Defense said incursions into Taiwan's air defense ID zone had become so frequent that it would no longer scramble to meet the aircraft each time and would instead track them with missiles. The ministry said the decision was made on the assessment that the flights were consuming resources and increasing the risk of a miscalculation or accident. The Chinese military said in mid-August it held live fire drills in the water and airspace southwest and the southeast of Taiwan. Beijing claims Taiwan as its territory and threatens to invade if Taipei refuses to submit indefinitely. Beijing's more belligerent stance has alarmed the U.S. In late March, at his confirmation hearing to lead the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Navy Admiral John Aquilino expressed his concern about the possibility China could seize Taiwan through military force. He told the Senate Armed Service Committee that the forces stationed in the region must be positioned to respond quickly to a takeover of Taiwan. Aquilino's comments echoed those made by former National Security Advisor McMaster, who said that Taiwan is the most significant flashpoint now that could lead to a large-scale war. Also in March, Admiral Phil Davidson, the former Indo-Pacific commander, told the Senate that China could try to seize control of Taiwan within the next 6 years. For the first time in more than half a century, the United States and Japan in April issued a joint statement on the security of the Taiwan Strait following a meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and the Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga. Although it was largely symbolic, the statement was an indication of increasing concern about the security of Taiwan. Such fears may seem justified by the threatening tone of the Chinese state media and an escalating number of missions by Chinese aircraft into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. But on the ground in Taiwan, there's no sign of panic. Having lived under the threat of Chinese military action for the past 70 years, the 23 million Taiwanese people have come to understand what they consider the strange paradox of Taiwan's existence. Even as China's military might grows, invasion does not necessarily come any closer. According to a poll published in April, only less than 40% of respondents believed that China and Taiwan were headed for military conflict. Although that figure was a rise from 35% last year and just 25% in 2004, well over half of Taiwan's population still believed that the war could be avoided altogether. Some experts believe much of the threat assessment by the U.S. military may actually be more of a reflection of a shift in U.S. perceptions about China. It is not based on intelligence, but an analysis of the military balance between the U.S. and China. Eric Lee is a research associate at the Project 2049 Institute. He said, "The Chinese Communist Party's hopes for unification with Taiwan have been clear for decades. And President Xi Jinping has made it clear during his term that the use of force is on the table. This challenge is nothing new. Rather, it reflects an updated threat perception of the CCP and the PLA in the context of U.S. strategic competition with China. China has stepped up its activities around Taiwan since Ing-wen was first elected president back in 2016. While Tsai's policies at home are viewed as largely maintaining the status quo in Taiwan's complex relationship with China, abroad she is associated with the push for a unique Taiwanese identity that is separate from the historical ties to China. Her policies and her administration's close relationship with the US have angered Beijing. As part of Taiwan's push for more political space, Tsai has sought to bolster Taiwan's defenses by raising the defense budget, reforming the reserves, improving its image from historical associations with the martial law era, and purchasing billions of dollars in arms from the US since taking office. Her administration has also seen a push to revive Taiwan's domestic weapons manufacturing, including locally made submarines, armored vehicles, and military aircraft, according to the Ministry of Defense. President Tsai Ing-wen and her government frequently highlight Taiwan's plight as a target of Chinese aggression to the international community, pointing to Afghanistan's government and army being overrun by the Taliban the moment the US withdrew from the country. Tsai told her compatriots that they would have to stand together to avoid a similar fate at the hands of China. But for most ordinary Taiwanese, there is barely a flicker of concern. Why? Because Chinese officials and the public are keenly aware of the difficulty and the huge cost to take Taiwan by force, and the Taiwanese people know it. According to former Defense Minister Michael Tsai, in order to invade Taiwan, Chinese forces would have to cross the 100 miles, that is 180 kilometers, Taiwan Strait with more than 100,000 soldiers and supplies. En route, they would face aerial and naval bombardment, and if they managed to land, strong local resistance. Mr. Tsai said, if Taiwan was attacked by the PLA, more than two-thirds of young people would take affirmative action to resist Chinese action. Taiwan is a free and a democratic country. We like to live in a peaceful coexistence with China, but if we were attacked, we have to react for some defenses. Of course, we'll suffer a lot. Many young people will lose their lives, but so will the PLA. For Taiwan expert and historian Bill Sharp, a former visiting scholar at the National Taiwan University, such a maneuver would be more difficult than a D-Day landing due to Taiwan's geography, rough waters, and unreliable weather patterns. Its coastal line also offers few suitable beaches, he said, for landing armored personal carriers, tanks, artillery, or large numbers of invading troops. An invasion could also draw in Taiwan's closest allies, such as the United States and Japan, posing too many unknowns for China's leadership. While the US is not guaranteed to come to the island's defense, it has promised to help the island maintain sufficient self-defense capabilities as part of the 1979 Taiwan Relations Act. Taiwan's public opinion has grown more hostile towards Beijing. Since early 2019, when Xi Jinping rejected flexibility in offering Taiwan a political deal, and during Beijing's crackdown on Hong Kong's autonomy, pro-independence sentiment has climbed to historical highs. The youth are even more anti-Chinese regime than society at large, as reflected in 2014 Sunflower student protest movement against the previous administration's engagement with China. As Taiwan's COVID-19 vaccination campaign gained traction this summer following donations from the US and Japan, many Taiwanese posted pictures of their inoculation records on Facebook with the words, "Thank you, Daddy America." The probability of a full-scale amphibious assault by the PLA is small, but Taiwan's outlying islands could still be targeted. Beijing could launch missile attack, blockade Taiwan's port, focusing on crippling Taiwan's through economic and trade. The CCP has not given up on the use of force to invade Taiwan. and the Chinese military has continued to strengthen its combat readiness. Every Chinese leader has said reunification is inevitable for the last 70 years. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly.